One arm dumbbell row. This is likely the most important movement in order to stabilize and feel the back. Trying to get an awareness of your lats, your latimus dorsus, your main muscle in your back that's going to allow you to stabilize your whole scapula. So we're going to go through how to do it effectively, what are some simple but really, really important cues in order to know you're using your lats and not all of the other surrounding musculature that can do that motion. So what I'll get Rustin to do here first is how we see 90% of people doing a row in the gym, is where we tend to notice that we're focusing so much on the dumbbell, so all the weight tends to stay on this leg, and we tend to just row towards our chest. You'll notice the elbow just goes towards the ceiling, and there's a lot of extra stuff that tends to go right up to the top, where you notice, really pulling through here. You notice the shoulder starts to lift, and there's a lot of extra stuff moving. There's a variation of that, so we can pause there. The reason that's not effective is because there's other muscles like our rear delts, our biceps, and even our teres major or upper back that can do a lot of that motion. So we need to be really, really intentional around what muscle we're trying to feel when we do the motion. So before we dive into that, the setup of this is really, really important. We're going to take this leg back a little bit so it's out of the way. We're not putting all our weight on it. Keep going a bit more. Yep, we're going to go nice and wide with that leg out that way, and then we're going to shift forward so more of the weight is between this arm and that leg. That means we've got a really dispersed balance, and none of this weight is on this hip, which gets rid of that rotation and really swinging off our hip. From here, we want to have that torso nice and straight and stable, chest tall, and now we're going to open up that scapula. Now, a really, really important part is to make sure that you're not just doing all the work with your elbow. You want to make sure that this lat and this whole shoulder blade is the one doing the work. So we're going to think about retracting and depressing the shoulder blade towards the hip, and really trying to think about pulling our shoulder blade into our back pocket. So rather than the classic like squeeze your shoulder blades together, the goal is how we can depress that shoulder blade down towards a hip, towards my hand here. So you can see that Rustin's motion of his arm has become less, but the amount of contraction between the insertion and origin of the lat, or those two end points there, are getting closer together, simply because we're focusing on wrapping those shoulder blade or the shoulder blade towards your hip closer together. So as you go through the motion, you want to think about, before the arm moves, wrapping the shoulder blade back and really wrapping this into your side. Okay? If you struggle with this, a nice way to break this down is, Rustin, I'll get you to just straighten your arm, keep your arm fully straight and don't change it, and just think about pulling the shoulder blade back and down, hold, squeeze that for a second, and then open up again. Wrap that back and down, hold, squeeze. Now this will be a function of both lower trap and lat to start with, but it gets you really, really aware of that shoulder blade actually being able to move. And for a lot of people, that's a very, very stiff component. So being able to, once again, we'll just do 2 more reps, being able to engage the lat, wrap that down and row through, and really intentionally, as Rustin's doing really well with this, wrapping that shoulder blade back so that shoulder stays locked in place. Most people really have the tendency for that shoulder to roll back forward, rather than those two muscles really trying to shorten together. And that is the one arm dumbbell row.